There seems to be no need to give a short summary of Blumenbach's life and his scientific achievements at this point. Let me, however, highlight one detail. Blumenbach has spent the entirety of his long academic career at Göttingen University and in a related institution located in Göttingen, the Academy of Science and the Academic Museum. This biographical fact makes Göttingen an ideal location for a Blumenbach project. Göttingen University Library owns copies of almost everything that Blumenbach has published in his life and nearly all the books he used for his research. Blumenbach's estate is kept here, as well as the extant items of Blumenbach's museum and of his private collection, for example, his collection of human skulls, are preserved in today's academic collection of Göttingen University with a few exceptions. Project data. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach Online is a so-called long-term project of the Union of German Academies of Sciences. It is based at the Göttingen Academy of Science. Blumenbach Online is a joint project of 3 Göttingen institutions, represented here by their most characteristic buildings: the Göttingen Academy of Science, Göttingen University, and University Library. The project started in 2010 with a term of 15 years. Presently, there are 4.5 positions which are held by 6 people, some of them on a part-time basis. The project aims at a digital edition of Blumenbach's publications and of still existing objects of his vast natural history collections. Manuscripts are not part of the project. I would like to present 3 aspects of our work: opportunities, challenges, and early results. I would like to apologize for taking my examples mostly from the work on Blumenbach's texts. This is due to the fact that I'm more involved in this part of the project than in the work of the collections. Opportunities. From a general point of view, a digital edition of Blumenbach's publications and collections is prerequisite for Blumenbach's scholarship into the upcoming age of digital humanities. Only if Blumenbach migrates from the Gutenberg galaxy to the Google universe, he will be a possible object of interest for future historians of science and their digital tools. But even for the traditional non-digital humanities, a digital Blumenbach may be a good idea. It seems that for many purposes, the printed books is supplemented, if not replaced, by the electronic book, and traditional public libraries might before long be seen as a costly luxury. The very change of media makes a digital Blumenbach necessary. The new digital methods may make it even more desirable. Placing the digitization of Blumenbach works and collections in a non-commercial context of an Academy of Science seems to offer 3 specific opportunities. First, completeness. Blumenbach Online is not limited to the more or less marketable part of his oeuvre, his most famous works in their most popular edition. The project wants to pass on the complete Blumenbach to the new digital media. In this respect, I will not only guarantee that in the digital cosmos of tomorrow there is as much Blumenbach available as in today's analog world. It will even make him more available because no analog library will ever hold copies of all his publications, which a digital repository easily can. This increase of accessibility is even more dramatic when we look at the Blumenbach scientific collections. They consist of unique items that can only be examined in one place because they are usually not, like books via interlibrary loan, sent to other museums. Second, quality. Blumenbach Online wants to provide digital material of a high quality. The digital image of books, pages, and objects will match our surpass the standard of the German Research Council, 300 dpi, and color images. And the same is true for accuracy of character recognition of the electronic text. The transcription from the analog to the digital text will be done as faithfully to the original as possible. Quality is also an issue with regard to the objects of Blumenbach's collection. Not only high-resolution photos be supplemented by rotating and scalable images where it makes sense. You see it. But for each object, there will also be a data set with detailed measurements and metadata about his biography. For instance, when, where, and by whom was a mineral sample collected? Who sent or brought it to Göttingen? And when did it arrive here? This goes far beyond the limited set of core data provided in databases like Europeana. Third, connecting texts and objects. Digitization makes it much easier than in former time to connect word and material items. And the Blumenbach project will take advantage of these new opportunities systematically and, as we hope, in an innovative way. Whenever Blumenbach in his text mentions an object from his collections or provides an engraving of one, there will be a hyperlink to a digital images and the dataset of the present-day collection item and vice versa. And because Blumenbach collections are digitized in their entirety, as far as they are preserved, it will also be possible to see what Blumenbach neglected, suppressed, or, for whatever reason, did not consider worth mentioning. There is a fourth point I would like to add to the opportunities that this project offers. Digitally enriched material. The Blumenbach project can be a test case for defining what a digital edition might be. In our view, a digital edition is not an on-screen version of a printed edition. Printed editions might be characterized as text plus additional information for human readers. For example, tables of content, index of names and places, explanatory footnotes and annotations. A digital edition would provide text plus additional information that facilitate the application of advanced digital tools to the text. This additional information is therefore encoded in a machine-readable way, which implies not directly intelligible for humans. These digital tools could be just assistance systems for conventional reading, like navigation systems or rain sensors for a car driver. But one could also imagine future algorithms that perform analytical procedures on text and extracts information from text automatically based on quantitative methods and artificial intelligence. To stay with the metaphor, they would be today's automatic parking assistants or the self-driving cars of tomorrow. From what I have said, it may be obvious that Blumenbach Online is a project rather for a scientific audience than for a general public. The digital texts and objects we provide are meant as scientifically reliable source material for students and researchers. Of course, the future Blumenbach portal will be open to everyone, and its design will help everyone who is interested in Blumenbach's publications and collections to find easily what he is looking for. But the portal will not include didactic elements and introductory essays, and the annotations we add to the text and the objects are aiming only at identifying names and cited literature, not at explaining and helping to understand them. After describing our goals, I would now like to make a couple of remarks about some of the challenges we have to meet within our work so far. My focus will be on the heterogeneity of our material and the insufficiency of existing authority databases. Challenges. The amount of text and the number of the objects that Blumenbach project has to deal with could be seen as a challenge in itself. We are dealing with 60,000 printed pages and 4,500 objects. More interesting, however, is the challenge posed by the heterogeneous material. Not only are text and objects themselves characterized by a great variety, it has also turned out to be difficult to unite text and collection items in a shared conceptual framework. Let me start with the text. Heterogeneity of text. Blumenbach has only written a lot, but also about many different things, and he employed many textual genres. Lightweight contribution to popular calendars or almanacs, multi-edition textbooks, specialized studies in Latin, Latin obituaries, official bulletins for the academy, and more. His own publications were mainly published in German and Latin, but his texts were also translated into English, French, Italian, Spanish, Russian, Dutch, Danish, as far as we know at present. And finally, Blumenbach has been publishing for more than 60 years. During this long period of time, standards and habits of scholarly publishing underwent considerable change. The resulting heterogeneity of this historical corpus of publications causes some difficulties in creating a homogeneous body of electronic text. A first and easily perceptible observation in the wide range of typefaces that can be found in Blumenbach's publication. It was never necessary for the purposes of the character recognition by humans as well by machines to produce a 30-page inventory of letters and symbols used in this text. Once they are digitized, the historical texts have lost their original materiality, and with it much of more information that is tacitly inscribed in their material appearance, for example, the size of the page, more importantly, the fact that the text is a part of a specific issue of a volume of a journal. Information like this, obvious when you have a paper copy of the journal in your hands, but it gets lost when the texts are reborn digitally. Obviously, it needs to be preserved in some way or another, if only for the sake of future human readers. And it needs to be encoded or translated for computers and digital devices. Of course, this is nothing completely new. For a long time, traditional cataloging of paper copies of books in library has taken care of this data and metadata. But digitization requires a much more comprehensive and a more granular system of metadata than that of the traditional library world in order to represent the all relevant features of the analog material. And for digital devices, these have to encode it in standardized languages and formats. When the Blumenbach project started 5 years ago, there were no out-of-the-box solutions for this problem, and much time had to be spent to develop sustainable solutions that agree with existing or future standards. Heterogeneity of objects. Blumenbach's collections are no less heterogeneous than this text. Not only do they come from the different areas of modern sciences, there's also a big variety with respect to their unique individual biographies, something that is less important for books. Their present legal status their state of preservation, and so on. In many cases, the individual biography of an object can be traced with the help of historical labels and notes that are preserved together with the objects. This kind of source material is documented by the Blumenbach project as well. In the museum world, the development of metadata standards for describing items is not as so developed as in the library world. The Blumenbach project, therefore, had to find its own solution, which is its own database for Blumenbach objects containing data fields for all kinds of scientific and historical information for different classes of objects. These data are much more detailed than the 10 core data fields that the Europeana standard allows. Text versus objects. However, not only metadata for each of the two groups of Blumenbach material, text and objects, are a challenge. The Blumenbach project wants to present both kinds of data under one roof, within the framework of a single portal, and we will connect them via hyperlinks. Sadly, the development of metadata standards in the library world and in the museum world have developed not only at different times and with different pace, but also without much mutual attention. Simply speaking, different languages have been developed to describe metadata for books and metadata for museum objects. And as a result, the Blumenbach project has to define translation and communication protocols for the metadata of text and objects. Insufficient authority database. Other challenges for digital projects concern sustainability, long-term preservation, and legal aspects of copyright in the digital age. But I would like to skip these because they are not specific for the Blumenbach project. However, I would like to demonstrate another difficulty we had to face. We think that for the use of our text by digital devices, it is necessary to identify the proper names of persons, institutions, and places in a machine-readable, standardized way. Machines may sooner or later master of normal vocabulary, hopeful even in historical orthography. Proper names, however, may turn out to be more difficult to identify and to interpret for machines, especially historical place names or identical personnel names that may refer to the different individuals. Which of the many places called Freiburg, Freiburg, Fribourg did Blumenbach have in mind when he wrote these place names? And how is called today? Who of the many Johann Meyers living around 1719 in Central Europe has sent him a mineral or a fossil bone? In cases like this, human readers may appreciate some help as well, but their everyday knowledge about the world they will manage to make sense of such ambiguous or opaque information in many cases. For digital devices, however, it seems to be essential to provide identifications of persons, institutions, and places. Because of the fact that names change over space and time, we need an Archimedean point for their identification. In the digital world, this would be an authority database. Such a database, first of all, a unique and an ambiguous and machine-readable identifier for each person and place in the world and in the history. And second, it refers from all other existing designations of the same entity to this particular identifier. Sadly, such a universal authority database does not exist yet. Indeed, there is the Getty Thesaurus for Geographical Names, which serves as an informal standard for place names all over the world. But it is strongest for place in the United States, less so far, say, Eastern Europe, and not very useful for historical names and places or bygone political units of the like the numerous German principalities of Blumenbach's time. And the Getty Thesaurus is a commercial project, until recently involving fees. Presently, it can be used for free, but this may change again in the years to come. Referring to it may, therefore, cause sustainability problems in the future. For personal names, there are the German gemeinsame Normdatei of the Deutsche Nationalbibliothek and similar national databases. Usually, this originates from a library context and are most useful for identifying persons who were involved in writing, producing, and selling books. These databases are helpful, but none of them is really complete, and until now, none of them has achieved the status of the worldwide standard. It seems that currently there is no solution for this problem. For identifying place names, we use the Getty Thesaurus because its datasets contain geo-coordinates. These coordinates will create automated visualizations, for example, of the spatial distribution of the provenance of Blumenbach's collection, or for the literature he cites. For identifying persons and institutions, the project has decided to create its own database. This procedure is very time-consuming and was not anticipated when the project was planned. However, it seems the best way to deal with the gaps in the existing databases, to eliminate ambiguities, and to guarantee the long-time sustainability of our data. The databases contain an entry for every proper name that Blumenbach mentions, or that occurs in the biographical data of literature cited by him. For example, publishers, translators, and so on. If possible, our dataset contains a reference to an ID number in an authority database. Early results. Now let me show you what Blumenbach Online has achieved so far. Since 2012, more than 99 of Blumenbach's texts are available as high-resolution images, and they are already available for the public via a static bibliographical list on the project's homepage. Digital texts are available for all of Blumenbach's monographs and for some of his articles. This equals approximately 65% of the printed pages that Blumenbach published. These digital texts contain encoded additional information about structural features. The international standards for encoding machine-readable texts are the TI guidelines. TI stands for Text Encoding Initiative. In the terminology of the guidelines, best practice for TI in library, these texts can be described as TI P5, best practice level 3. The production of these level 3 texts will go on and should be completed in about 2 years. By then, all of Blumenbach's texts will be available in the electronic version, enriched with basic additional information, encoded in a machine-readable way. Identifying items from Blumenbach's collection is more difficult than finding his publications in library catalogs. In many cases, the documents about the provenance of objects are lost, and it requires detective work to find out if a specific item in a modern collection was part of Blumenbach's collection. Over the last years, approximately 4,500 objects from Blumenbach's collection have been identified in various modern collections, mainly in Göttingen, but also in some other places. For about a third of them, datasets and photos have been produced. For technical reasons, these can not yet made available. For the text, a detailed concept for additional encoding has been developed. This encoding will lift the text from their present level 3 status to the level 5 status. This means not only structural features of the text are encoded, but also selected aspects of their content. A project-specific, detailed 50-page instruction has been developed in order to guarantee the consistency of the final corpus. I would like to give you an impression of the resulting text. Okay, works. This is a rather simple piece of an encoded text. Colored black, you can see Blumenbach's original text. Colored red, blue, and green are so-called tags which contain additional information added manually and encoded in TI. You can see in green the identification of a person with the reference to the project's own database, and the identification of a place in Siberia by its Getty ID. The red text describes formal and structural features of the text. What is missing from the piece of the text is an example of a bibliographic reference and of encoding it requires. In this text, Blumenbach describes a sample of meteorite from his collection. The sample belongs now in the Geoscience Museum in Göttingen. Here you can see the encoded hyperlink to these objects, colored blue. His hyperlink leads to our images of the objects and to the corresponding dataset. A full level 5 encoded page of more complex text would look like this. This one. It would, of course, to be possible to add more text to the text and to enrich the even further with machine-readable information. However, this level of encoding may prove sufficient as far as our idea of what a digital edition could be is concerned. Summary. Blumenbach Online tries to be more than a digitization project, that is, more than transferring Blumenbach's texts and collections to the digital media. Blumenbach Online aims at a digital edition. This edition will not only preserve the meaningful features of the analog items, but also add information for the application of future digital tools. In this way, Blumenbach's texts and collections are prepared for the tools and methods of digitally enhanced scholarship. I have pointed out two requirements for this endeavor: powerful metadata and reliable authority databases. They could be seen as elements of a conceptual and informational infrastructure that a digital edition will need. Added to this list could be the requirement of a technical infrastructure to guarantee sustainability and a legal infrastructure for copyright issues. Presently, this digital infrastructure is not completely sufficient. To a certain degree, its deficits can be compensated by a project-specific measure and development work. However, these are additional and time-consuming efforts at the expense of the project-adding tasks. Last but not least, I would like to say many thanks to my Blumenbach colleagues in preparation of my talk and you for your attention.